Hey Logo Geeks, it's Ian Paget here for the very first video version of this podcast. And you are here for the Logo Geek podcast. And today I'm really excited to be speaking to a friend of mine, Stef Hamerlinck, who is joining me to primarily talk about creating brand mascots, but a more focused on using AI tools to generate different characters. But before I do jump into that, I want to share some exciting news. So as you guys will be aware, if you listen to the podcast for a long period of time, I've been building Logo Geek for around 10 years. A big part of that has been creating this podcast and creating my book, Make a Living Designer Logos. And I've just got this big long-term vision for everything. And a key part of that has been to essentially build some kind of community, create something that really adds value to everybody. And I've realized over the past few years that realistically, that's not something that I could do on my own. I have tried, so I have done things like Logo Geek Logo Club and Logo Geek Plus, which I did prior to that. And that was something that was a lot of fun, and I had a lot of support with that. I had some really cool people that came in and was part of that. But I realized realistically, I'm a single dad to a 6-year-old daughter. I've got my own clients and projects that I'm working on, and realistically, building a community in a way that I wanted it to be anyway, it wasn't sustainable to do that. Really, I didn't feel that I was giving the value that I wanted to, and in order for that to have become what I wanted it to be, I basically would need that to be a full-time job and would need to hire people. And at this point in my life, it's not something that I'm too interested in doing to start hiring people. So I've been thinking about different ways of solving this, and I came to the solution of working with somebody else. So I was thinking, okay, what if I find somebody that's already doing something in line with what I have in mind, who has a similar sort of mindset to everything, so that I could integrate with them in some way. And that would still achieve the same goal, because this isn't about egos. This is just about creating a really great place for everyone that has a passion for graphic design, for logo design, for branding. So I reached out to Michael Jander several months back and pitched this idea about potentially integrating, and he was excited about the idea. We've been speaking, and it was announced yesterday that I will be, or Logo Geek, me, and the Logo Geek community will become part of More Creative Academy. I will be joining there as part of the thought leadership there, and really integrating myself into that. So if you want to go and check out morecreativeacademy.com/logo geek, and by using that link, that supports me and the goals that I have. So how this will work. So if you've been following me, been part of the Logo Geek Facebook group, that's all still going to be available. But if you want extra value from me, from a community, from people like Mike Jander, join the More Creative Academy. And within there, what I'm going to be doing myself, so every day I'll be in there checking messages, DMs, posts, comments, all that sort of stuff. So if you have questions, you can ask them within that community, and obviously Mike's available there as well. But if you have any specific for me, I will be available for that. But also what I'm most excited about, so my biggest thing that I would be doing within the community is geek out sessions. And these will be with a guest, and we will essentially geek out for 90 minutes about whatever topic seems fitting. And one of those sessions, upcoming sessions, will be with today's guest, with Stef. He has agreed to do a session on creating a mascot. So within this interview here now, we're going to be diving into a little bit about his background, and then we're going into detail about the reason why somebody might want a mascot, to an overview of the process. And then within More Creative Academy, we're actually going to do a live session with him to actually build a character in the way that we've described it within this interview here. So I'm really excited about that. It's something new for me. Doing video is new for me. And like what I did with all my audio stuff, I'll do everything I can to continually improve. This is one of the first times that I've done this. I'm still learning the tools. I'm learning the best ways of presenting myself on video, but I'm embracing it now. 10 years ago when I started my podcast, this was all terrifying. But here I am now. We are doing this. So, like I said, if you want the full experience, join More Creative Academy and join me in those geek out sessions. And I'm really, really excited about that session. And like I said, it would be live with Stef, and you will be able to interact and ask questions along the way. So I hope that will be something that you will enjoy. So let's get straight into this. Here is the interview that I've done with Stef Hamerlinck. Hey Logo Geeks, it's Ian Paget here, and today I'm joined by my friend Stef Hamerlinck. This is a long overdue conversation. We've known each other for it must be like 10 years or something. And we've known each other online primarily. We did get to meet briefly in person several years ago, and it's just long overdue, and I'm really excited to have this time to chat with you so that you can so that my audience can get to know you. So I'm gonna jump in with some heavy questions. So I think it would be worth getting a little bit of background about you, where you've been, and where you are now. So I think probably the best place to start is how did you initially get into brand building?
Okay, a really good question. And hi everyone. I started like as a graphic designer way. This sounds like I'm old. I might be old. I think around 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago.
Similar to me. Don't feel old, but actually, in comparison to 20-year-olds, we are.
Voila. I started there, like I was just interested in visual design. I did a lot of motion design, 3D, like web design. I did kind of a bit of everything. I always was a bit of like this all-around type of guy. Started a small studio with my brother, and grew that over a few years to like at some point it was around 10, 15 people, and made a lot of evolution where I started focusing more and more on brand strategy. So going from purely a designer to a real like brand strategist type. Started teaching that also a bit, started a podcast in the meanwhile to basically understand what brand strategy was about. I got into the whole thing with the future, as a lot of designers did, I think, at some point, trying to understand a bit more, trying to level up, blah, 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 blah. And I did that for a few years, ran the studio. Then COVID hit. I decided to just like have some fun, go on my own. So I had like a solo consultancy for a few years. Lots of fun, like branding project, strategy project, teaching, a lot of interesting stuff. Always a bit on the hybrid between like a lot of strategic work, but still like keeping one foot in design, because I always like, I never want to lose that creative side. I always wanted to keep doing that. And then a few years back, well, around 4 years ago, I jumped over to like an in-house role at Allen, which is like a really cool health insurance brand in Europe and in Canada and soon everywhere in the world. A very cool brand. And there I got the opportunity to like complete a bit what I was already like talking about a lot and doing a lot with other brands was this idea of, okay, you can build a strategy for a brand, you can design the brand, but then you still need to build it. Like you need to market it, you need to come up with campaigns, you need to choose the right channels, build on feedback, and so on. And so that's what I've been doing the last 4 years is like campaigns, events, all these types of things where you're basically doing marketing, brand marketing in that case. And that is also like for me the way like the circle is round now in the sense that I think brand building, this what is this thing, because I changed my title to it as well as like brand builder,
Hmm.
is this idea of like it's a person or a role where you think about a brand in first off strategically understanding, you know, the category, the customer, all of that stuff, making sure you know what the brand is standing for. Then you think about how does it look, how does it feel, and then you also think about how do we activate it, how do we put it in the market, how do we evolve it and grow it. I think those three things are like very important to think about and consider, and that's what I would say is the idea of what brand building is really about.
That's so cool. And I know there is absolutely so much that we can, especially based on everything that you've shared there. Um, I want to bring up something that's related to that you've been sharing on social media. So a lot of the content that you've been putting out recently has been, I think I would best describe it, or rather, you best describe it as like AI powered brand building. And I think this is a topic that I would love to focus on initially, and we're seeing where this goes because I know that we could probably talk for hours about these topics. So I want to jump into straight into this topic, and we'll see where it goes. So could you describe what you mean by AI powered brand building? And I'm curious, like, where are you bringing that into your full time role currently, if you
Hmm.
are?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been a like a very interesting, let's say, about 2 years, where like at Allen, the company I've been working for, they're like a tech company, so there was a lot of room when AI came around to play with it, which was of course a great opportunity. And so that's where actually this really started because I was working on like more traditional campaigns, you know, hire a video crew, have an ID, build a script, shoot the video, put it out on the right channels or something like that. And I started playing around with this idea. We had this cool like 3D mascot, but yeah, it was costly to, you know, get a 3D agency, do the animations, feedback. It was like a very long feedback loop. It was costly. It was not something we did very often, so we used the same assets over and over again. Felt very limiting, and I saw like image generation came around, and it was very interesting to me this idea that, you know, you can generate consistently a character or a brand asset or a style or bring some ID to life. And so I started exploring that a lot at Alon. And in the beginning, it was a total mess. Of course, it was like very, very random stuff going on. But over time, we really honed in on it and we started to really be able to generate content for social media, for ads, for all types of campaigns with AI, with generative AI. And we started to be able to do it consistently up to a point where today, for example, at Allen, like hundreds of images are being generated every day by people working in customer care, in sales, in marketing, obviously. And they're all on brand, they're high quality, they can make videos from it, they can tell stories with it, they can use them in their sales decks. Like, it's really cool to see the scale of this thing going on. And all of a sudden, like, this brand mascot is no longer just like this static asset or maybe like a few animated assets that you have living in a Google Drive. It's like a living thing that people can take and apply their IDs to. So in general, I would say that is a bit the idea of like, it's AI powered. To be clear, like, it's very much still like, I'm a huge believer in the power of creativity, and I think creativity comes from our brain. And so you can't really outsource the creativity part. What you can do is you can use AI to come up with really good, interesting on-brand content much faster and at a cheaper rate. There is a few caveats to that, of course, as well. But I think the main problem is today when we're talking about generative AI or like AI powered is that most people see it as like this spectrum where on the one hand, it's either generic slop that is like, it's killing artist jobs, it's trained on uncooperated data, it's very bad and it's not entertaining, it's not good. Or on the other side is maybe like the real thing, the old thing, like old, like traditional craft, human made, nothing else. And the reality is that there is a lot of opportunity for brands there in that middle space, in that hybrid space where you use AI to power your IDs, to boost your IDs, to expand your IDs, to amplify them. And I think that's for me being very excited. And obviously there's like this little guy, Marcel, for the people
But for
watching.
anyone that's listening to the audio only, Steph just showed his little, what is it, Marcel, the character?
Marcel, it's like a blue dog. It's my mascot. And like, yeah, I've been having so much fun being able to tell stories that otherwise would have been very hard for me to tell. And yeah, I think that's the real opportunity here is like use AI to become more memorable, not to produce more generic slop because that's also happening. Let's face it. I'm critical of a lot of stuff happening in the AI space, so I'm not like this believer that just like thinks the future is here and everything is done. But yeah, I am as a designer, as a person that always has been interested in making cool stuff. Like this is such an exciting time for me. Like I have so many tools now, and I can create so much interesting things. I can do that for myself, and I can do that for brands that I'm working with. So yeah, that's a very long, winding road.
That was great. So I know something I've always been concerned about, or something that I feel when I see AI generated images, is that I kind of mentally switch off when I see it.
Hmm.
And I mean it's in part because it's new technology. We are the last generation of designers who did it the traditional way, where we had to create everything from scratch. And I sometimes I get this element of, as soon as I know it's AI, I kind of switch off. Even if it's like the most amazing piece of art, it's like, oh, it's AI, and I kind of lose interest in it. And I don't know if that's a broader thing, but I something I find with the stuff that you've been doing recently, like I know you've been like your little Marcel character, you've been creating some content with that, and you've also been doing some videos of you with Marcel, which I assume are like completely AI generated, like you've used your own face. And actually, I watch it and it's like, you know what, this is really fun. And you wouldn't have been doing this anyway. Like if even if you like you physically wouldn't be putting out any content with any mascot if AI didn't exist. Now I find it very exciting that as creatives we are able to do this. I still feel it's at the point where like the average Joe can't necessarily do this, because you still need to add an element of creativity to it. You still need ideas. It still needs the art direction. So uh, I feel, if anyone's watching or listening to this that feels slightly against AI, I think they should be open. I think they should check out what you're doing, and I'll put links to that in the show notes, because I think there's a lot of opportunities in exactly the way that you described, where the traditional way of doing it is extremely expensive, and because of that they wouldn't be doing it anyway. Well, now there's this opportunity to create fun, inventive, new original content through all the social medias to a high standard, stuff that couldn't have been done even a year ago. So I want to ask you, I want to dive into all the process stuff, but I want to ask you one question before doing that. I can tell you absolutely love mascots. At least that's it's coming across through your social content. You have it all over your website. It's like this is kind of like your new thing that you're really driving home, this idea of having a mascot. A lot of my favorite brands have mascots, but it's only really a handful, and like the average company doesn't have them. But I'd love to know why this fascination with mascots, and why and when do you feel a mascot is needed?
Yeah, a lot to dig in. It's a good point to start actually, because like regardless of AI or not, for me this is probably the bigger opportunity. Is like there is a problem in the sense that I think a lot of both branding professionals and brands have basically lost the plot in the last 20-30 years. A lot of it has to do with like digital performance marketing. We thought like we had it all figured out with like now everything is clickable and measurable, so we don't have to do all of this old stuff where we entertain people and but the reality is that actually there's a lot of problems when you don't build a brand. And there's a lot of science to back that up, and I can share some links and talk about that as well. But what we're seeing is that like when we ask people, and this has been done in like studies with control groups, everything, thousands of people, the ads they've seen, like which ones do you remember? And then they look at the codes that were in those ads, like, or we call them the distinctive brand assets, the ones with like sonic assets, with characters, with jingles, with very distinctive product shapes, like think of a Red Bull can or maybe a Heinz ketchup bottle. Those are the ones that people remember. The ones they don't remember are the ones with logos, like fonts. Oh, and I don't mean like, I mean like where the logo or the font or the color is the only identifier. It doesn't mean like you shouldn't have logos or whatever. It just means that a logo on its own is a very unmemorable identifier, and that's a weird thing to say. We're on the logo podcast here, but
I think it's good to say,
yeah.
like a logo isn't the most important thing. Like if you have a very good product and service and you have a terrible logo, you're still going to be successful. It just helps with so many areas. But I digress.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's interesting, and even when you do show the logo, like there's another interesting study where it's like show the logo in context. So show the logo on a t-shirt, show it on a can, show it somewhere in the ad in the first seconds, but don't show it visually overlaid a post upon a thing, because that screams for people this is an ad and they're already out. So it's an interesting element. But again, like coming back to this idea, characters are one of the most powerful, they are the most powerful visual asset that you can use. And if you think about it, it makes sense. I mean, our brain from millions of years, like if we go back, reptilian brain, we're trained to recognize faces, to trust them, because that's how we survived this whole thing, and we got so far. So it's normal for us to be very good at remembering faces, and characters have faces. They're a lot more memorable, and it's not only that, you can tell stories in a much more interesting way through a living, dancing, breathing thing. So yeah, there was the science that told me mascots are great. But then there's also just like me as a creative, I always felt like a lot of brands, like they always want to do like the same thing as everybody else in the category. It's very boring. It's always like very rational. And I just believe that like entertaining, fun things are also things that people that grab the attention and stick around. And it's also just more fun for me to make. So it's a bit that combination where I started thinking, well, hey, I love character design. I see the science backs it. Why don't more brands have characters? Like I genuinely was surprised by that, and that's also something I explored in my documentary. And I talked with a lot of like industry experts and scientists about like why are they disappearing, and one of the reasons apparently is that a lot of marketers felt like they needed to be more serious, that that a mascot makes them childish. And that brings me to your second point of the question, which is like, when is it a good thing to have a mascot? And I will die on this hill to say that I think almost any brand is able to have a mascot. And I know that's a bit extreme, but like Alan, as an example, is a B2B health insurance brand. There's probably not a more serious category. I mean, you're like helping people when they're hospitalized. You know, it's a very trustworthy thing. With like also the competitors are very, traditional 100, 200-year-old companies. This is a category that's not something where you would expect, but it works great. It works in so many categories that you would not expect, where I would be surprised to see a category where it absolutely doesn't work. Of course, it's not for every brand. And probably the reason why I would say it's not for your brand is not per se because it wouldn't work for you. It's probably more to do with like the culture. Like if you don't have an internal culture of taking risk, of being entertaining, of like having that sort of personality as a brand, it's gonna be very hard to leverage a mascot in the right way. So you do need a certain type of team, founder, CEO, CFO that kind of believes in, hey, we want to be out there, we want to stand out, we want to be creative. Otherwise, it's just gonna fail, or you're gonna have a boring mascot.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop rambling because there's a lot we can
You are
talk
not
about.
rambling in the slightest. This is amazing. This is what this podcast is all about. Geeking out about this stuff. So, I was going to ask you about the whole childish aspect, because I think that would be the one area that I would personally be concerned about. I mean, not necessarily what I'm doing, because I think I could get away with being a bit quirky with everything. But some like insurance type companies, you might think, oh, that's not relevant. But then you think of Compare the Meerkat. I don't know if that's everywhere globally, but here in the UK we have comparethemarket.com, and they have the meerkats, and they really pushed that quite aggressively. And whenever I think of I need to renew my insurance, I literally think of that first. And I can't forget it because it's like, oh, meerkat. Oh yeah, Compare the Market. It's very clever, and you can tell that they intentionally picked a meerkat because it kind of rhymes with market. I'm thinking, so in terms of like the design of the character, the feel of the character, what would help drive that feel? Because if you think of things like the Michelin Man, when that came out initially, that was a guy dressed up in this rubber suit. It was quite horrific, actually, if you look back at the original photos. But I mean, that, like, the Michelin Man has this more serious tone to it, even though it's, almost like the Marshmallow Man kind of thing, but it has more of a serious tone to how they've done it. But then there's things like Compare the Meerkat, where they have these, sort of animated things. How would you, like, say if you're a brand, how would you decide what your brand mascot would be? Do you have a process for that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there is some sort of a process, a lot like a typical brand strategy process, where you try to understand how does the category look like, what are the dominant codes, how does the customer feel about this category. You bring all those signals together. You look at the company you're working for. Is there a history? What can we dig into? And then you think about the positioning of the brand and the personality that you want to express. So these are, like, let's say, the important boundary conditions wherein you start playing. But then what happens, and this is actually quite similar to logo design, I think, and any type of like creative asset design, is there is some alchemy in that process between like whatever you define strategically and then what comes out as an asset. And there is some randomness, there is a bit of a black box there, and that's great because what you want to avoid is like a very tight brief and that says like we want an animal with blue fur and this type of thing, and that is the only option that comes out. In reality, like there needs to be some, yeah, again, alchemy, because the best characters are often slightly random. Like they happen a bit happenstance. Sometimes there's something a founder said about him being whatever fan of dogs or dolphins for some reason. It's fine to take like a bit of a random thread and then start building on that. But of course, again, within the boundaries of, okay, this brand has that type of personality. You're not going to go full on 180 degrees the opposite way, but it's a bit like this moment. And again, that's where generative AI is very interesting. When you are designing the asset, is you can explore a lot of ideas very fast, basically at the almost at the pace of thought. And this is something I actually do, and I recommend for a lot of people to try this. Is go to Midjourney, put it in draft mode, in conversation mode. You can do this, and you just start sharing whatever is on your mind. It can be anything from I want a character that reminds me of the sea. I want to have a rock that feels soft, like whatever random thoughts are in your brain based on the research and the work you've done before that. Start talking, and this machine will spit out a lot of creative random ideas, and those will be bouncing pads where you will be able to hone in on certain directions. And then still, of course, like after some of this wild exploration, this can also go to a supermarket, especially if you're in Japan. Then I mean, you will find a lot of inspiration there. But basically, then it is a matter of like having 3 4 interesting directions and validating those with the client, and often there will be new directions that come out of that. And then of course there's a whole phase of fine tuning. Sometimes you get a 3D company on board to actually model that and render that in even more detail. But the process is try to understand the context, the category, see if you have jumping points, but also be open, because there is a bit of like a mascot is a bit interesting in the sense that usually when you think about visual identity, you think about this really strong, like cohesive language where everything makes total sense, right? The color palette, the typography, the logo, it all feels very much part of it. And a mascot should fit in that, but it should also jump out of that a little bit. You see what I'm saying? And that's where I think it's interesting that it needs to have a little bit of contrast with the brand identity. It needs to jump out. It needs to be part of it. It's like that exploration where, yeah, that's slightly different than creating some kind of illustration for a brand or something else, where the mascot is a real like front of the house part, a real asset that you need to do. And sometimes what I actually do is when I do, because I sometimes get like the full branding scope, I start from the mascot and I build the brand identity around that, rather than building, the mascot from the brand identity. That's an interesting approach, but you don't always have that choice. In a lot of cases, the brand exists, the identity exists, but they're like, we don't have enough tools to stand out. Give us a mascot, and then it's building on the identity. And of course, I do a lot of checks. Like, it's a matter of like putting the logo together with the mascot, the typography, putting it in a slide, putting it in an animation, putting it in social media templates, and seeing if this whole thing clicks together. That's an obvious thing you have to do.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm thinking, so I want to help people out there with this that maybe aren't aware of the AI tools available. And so I want to make sure that we assume that people know nothing about what's out there when we talk about this. So I've used Midjourney, which is a fantastic tool for AI generation. In terms of coming up with the design of your mascot, I know just then you described like having a conversation with it and seeing what comes out, and using AI specifically to kind of make the choices for you. Um, have you approached this ever in a way where you've actually like sat down and come up with your own ideas rather than letting kind of AI dictate everything? And if you have done that, have you successfully been able to kind of make it quite close to what you have? Because I did see on your Instagram or where it was like you did some drawings with your daughter. Is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
you
this
turned
little
that into a
fella.
thing. Yeah, it's cute.
Yeah,
What's this
I could.
character called? So again, for people listening, Steph is showing us another little character.
Yeah,
These
I
are
have these
great.
all.
I love that you have them printed, 3D printed, I assumed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's like the first thing I do when it's ready. I like make a 3D print out
It's
of
really
it, and
cool. I love that.
yeah,
You're going to
by
have
now I
so
have.
many of these collected.
Voila, I have like a treasure
That's
chest,
cool.
which is really cool. But this is a great story because like I actually think like I never let AI take the driver's seat. So what I was describing earlier is more this idea of you have maybe random or seemingly random creative concepts in your mind, and you ask AI to explore that visually, and that gives you ideas of whether something is working or not, and you can go further in a direction, you can go back, you can take different directions. It's more the idea of like validating these ideas very quickly, while either you're a really good sketch artist, illustrator, or something, and you have an idea in your mind, but you need to put quite some time into like testing it to see whether it's working. So that's why I usually try to work it. But this at the same time, I also do a lot of like more traditional style exploration. For example, for Dreamy, this is like the character for a huge toy retailer. Like I think they're one of the biggest ones in Europe, actually. They had a merger, they had an old mascot, and so basically they needed a new mascot. And I knew it was a toy retailer, so instantly I thought, okay, let me just sit down with my daughter, and we do this often anyway. But I just asked her like, let's come up with characters based on a star because that was an important element in the brand identity. So here I said like, I just want to think about stars. Is it monkey stars? Is it walking stars? Is it unicorn stars? Whatever. And we started exploring different ideas, and we drew this like little like monkey with a starry head. Yeah, again, you can see it in the video, or you can watch the case study. It'll be in the links. I'll share it. Um, and that sketch, actually, if you look at the final design and like put it together, is really close to what we ended up with in the final, like in the final character. So it was a long route in between those two things, but if you look back and if you compare them, that's really good. And that's also, again, something very powerful. You can have a bunch of sketches, take a photo of them, ask Midjourney or some other tools to basically turn that into a 3D character, or it doesn't have to be 3D, it can be 2D, whatever look you're going for. And yeah, again, that's a way to prototype IDs much faster and just see if they work or not. But you, as the creative, should always be in the driver's seat. You have the tastes, you have the IDs, you have the experience, and never let like I see clients come up with me to me all the time with like, "Hey, I asked ChatGPT what should be my mascot, and here's like four things," and they are always boring, bad, generic, ugly, just like the worst. So let's not fool ourselves. I'm confident that our jobs are quite safe, but you just need to make sure that you are in the right position, and maybe not. Sometimes for some people that might mean like going full on anti AI. That's fine. I think that will have a lot of place for that too. But if you embrace these tools and use them in the right way, I think you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, I think the important thing that you've stressed here is that AI isn't taking the lead on it, that you're using it as a tool, you're using it as an extension to your creativity, and you're using it as a way to make an idea real. Because this little character was something I've seen the sketch. I'll try and link to it in the show notes for this. But I believe it was your daughter that actually sketched out the character,
Hmm.
and this final thing does look very close to that. Um, I want to ask some questions for people that aren't aware of it, or at least provide some more context for it. So Midjourney is a platform that it's got a monthly subscription to it.
Hmm.
How it works is you essentially describe like the type of image that you want it to create, and then it will generate a number of different images, and then you can size them up. Um, I know that you can add in an image, and you can do this with things like Firefly as well. Is it Firefly?
Yep.
Like the Adobe one?
Yep.
I was
Yep.
thinking if I muddled that up with a TV show. Anyway. But basically it's a text prompt. You describe what you want, and then AI will kind of generate what it looks like. In this case, Steph's daughters drew a character. Steph's uploaded that as an image, and then used it as a reference point. And um, it's been able to take an idea that a human has created and make it into something that previously would have cost substantial amounts of money to develop. You would have to hire 3D artists, or be a 3D artist yourself. And it most people just wouldn't do it because it would just
Hmm.
be
Yep.
expensive. And I think that's one of the more exciting things.
Yeah, and just to pick up on that, actually, what I've seen that's interesting is like, because obviously there are the 3D studios and there are the like there's all types of creatives that definitely, like, let's not pretend like there's less work sometimes coming their way as well.
Yes, I understand. AI is very disruptive,
Yeah,
not just
yeah,
for designers, but for everybody. And I
exactly.
think you either embrace it or risk getting stuck behind. And I
Yeah,
think that's the unfortunate way that this is going for every industry globally, not just designers.
exactly. And what's interesting to me is like, actually, I've done a few projects now where I hired a 3D agency once the mascot was done, because like a client wanted to do a TV spot or something with them, and basically for that type of work, you still generally go to like a higher production, more traditional production workflow, which is you hire a 3D agency and they do all of the animation stuff, the VFX. So interestingly, I've seen like a couple of cases where they wouldn't have hired any 3D partner, but because we started with this and then they kind of like at some point did want to level up, they used the 3D partner. And I've seen some interesting cases as
Interesting.
well where like clients start to do more, maybe it's more image or video generation, and at some point then they say, okay, now we want to create something really epic, and they go hire a 3D or a video crew or something. So again, like, if you can find ways to integrate this in your workflow, embrace it somehow, and then like, that can in some cases lead to more work. But yeah, let's not beat around the bush. If companies can save money on this stuff, they will, and that's happening 100%.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the unfortunate way that this is going, is that AI is making things easier, faster, and I know we could, spend hours debating this, but I just think, in my opinion, I feel that designers should embrace it, at least spend some time looking at it, trying these things, take a look at what Steph's been doing with his mascots, and you can't deny it. It's like this is cool. I know I mentioned this feeling that I get when I see some AI stuff. I'm like, oh, I kind of lose interest a little bit when I can tell it's AI. But actually, I think the average person embraces it. They can't see the difference between AI and like 3D models that we
Yeah,
probably can as
th-
creatives.
there was a interesting study done. I think Wall Street Journal. It was in my newsletter, where you had three types of people. They showed AI generated stuff to people that knew about it, they showed AI generated stuff to people that didn't know about it, and then they showed, I think it was non-engineered, just like normal, not AI generated content. And the conclusion was that people, if they didn't know about it, they liked it as much as the traditional stuff. If they knew about it, they didn't like it.
Interesting.
But so that means two things. One, like at the current rate of innovation, I don't know if people have seen some of the stuff that like Sora and VO3 and some other video models have been putting out. Like, I'm pretty sure in a few months we'll be very close to, like, I think for already today there's a lot of stuff that you don't know. And it used to be images like, oh no, there's 7 fingers, ha ha ha. Now it's impossible. Like, photography is already impossible to know the difference. So if people genuine, like, they like, at some point they won't know, and I think even if they will know at some point because they're so used to it being around in the market, in the ecosystem, I think it will be less important.
Yeah.
What is important and what will gets people attention today, tomorrow, and 10 years is the feeling that somebody, the company or the individual that is showing you this stuff, invested in the content. So it doesn't really matter that much if it's AI or not. Like, I think the reason why people like some of my videos is because they feel like I put love into it. I actually
Yes,
put
I can see that. I
my
can see that.
real voice. I
It
put my
doesn't
real
feel
voice in
like,
it. Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. It doesn't feel
No.
like AI slop. It's like, oh, you put time into this. You've taken an idea that's your own and
Yeah.
you've made something fun with it. And it's why I wanted to reach out to you, because it's like, you know what, I'm not anti AI. Like, I'm not against it. Like, I use it a lot for process stuff. I've used it for logo design projects where I want to do a lot of exploration. Like, one example is I made this logo for like a company that makes things out of wood for tabletop games. And I had this idea of like some kind of king or some kind of forest or something like that. And okay, I mean, I can draw, but I'm, trying to draw like a king or like a forest or something like that. I would spend hours and hours and hours sketching out these potential ideas. But where AI was really good in that case is that I could explore thousands of different things so quickly, as though I had access to like a small little studio of designers that were exploring what I had in my mind. And I feel that the final product came out much better than it would have done if I just sat down and done that on my own, because I explored ideas and ways of approaching the idea that I just either didn't think of on my own, which is no different than somebody mentioning an idea to you, if you're working on a project. But I feel that any of these sort of negative connotations to it will go with time. And although I wasn't alive, or at least I was too young during the time when design went from being done by hand to being done by computer, I can imagine that people had a similar feel back then as well. That that there was this kind of people didn't like stuff that was made on a computer versus handmade. But now, computer-based design is just normal now.
Mm.
And it's the same with like 3D animated computer generated graphics. That's all just commonplace now. You don't even think about it. And I just feel that especially since the tools are improving, all the video stuff is incredible. The first time I saw it, I couldn't tell it was pretend. Now I can hear the voice. Once they nail the voices and they take out that, I don't know what it is about the voices. The voices
Yeah.
just aren't quite right. It's there's going to be fully AI generated movies out there, and I think as creatives, we are the perfect group of people to embrace this, to create things that we wouldn't have. Companies gain access to stuff that they wouldn't have previously, and I think it's interesting that you brought up that by using AI is opened up doors to opportunities for 3D artists that wouldn't have exist anyway. So I think the landscape is going to change. wait, I rather than debating about the AI whether it's right or wrong, let's focus on the people that are going to embrace this, the people that want to try this, just give it a go. So you've mentioned about using Midjourney to kind of design a mascot, but you've been putting out a lot of content out there where you have like fully animated characters. They're all consistent. I don't personally know how to do this because I've kind of dabbled with it a little bit over the years and tried things out. But going from an idea to a fully consistent character, do you mind talking through what tools you need, how you need to approach this, and how you go about putting something out there if you're comfortable to sort of disclose that information anyway?
Sure. Yeah. So I share this stuff publicly on my newsletter everywhere. So it's
Is
not a
that the
secret.
Let's Talk Branding
Yeah. Let's start branding
newsletter?
dot substack.com. I build it there. There's a paid newsletter, but a lot of the stuff is in the free stuff. So yeah. If you wanna go find that out, it's all in there. But I'll try and do my best to like describe it quickly. So the first thing you want to do is obviously get the concept down to a point where you have a character that feels consistent. Like you know what it's like. Maybe it's some sort of creature. Maybe it's an object. Maybe it has a certain type of clothing. Maybe it has a certain type of eyes expression. Like you have a good idea of what it looks like. Then once you have that somewhat nailed in, and you can do that with Midjourney, that's quite easy. Once you have that,
Sorry to interrupt. So you just need a character on like a white background,
yeah, let's
like
say
the
you
front
have,
of the character.
yeah, voila, just like
Yeah,
boom, one
sure.
one static shot. Then you can either and there's a million tools and a million solutions, but what start to want to get is you not only want to have the character frontally, but you want to see how it looks from the side and from behind. There you can use either like Google Nano Banana or GPT Image or Dream 4. These are all image editing models that you can give an image and tell the model to give me this character in 3, 4 different angles. Then you will see, of course, not all the angles will be right. Maybe you want the tail to look different, so you go in and you tweak that until you have 3, 4, let's say front, back, side of the character. So then you already know how it looks like spatially. Then you start exploring again with the same image editing model. I would recommend Dream 4 for simplicity. It's the best one. It's and you can access Dream 4 or any of these models in these like what you call these creative platforms like FreePic or Krea, or I use Scenario, but these are all like big platforms that offer all the models under one roof. So just pick one and stick to it. They like whenever a new model drops, they usually do it the day after or something. So again, Dream 4, you explored how the character looks like spatially. Then you can start exploring how it looks like behaviorally, like what kind of poses does it do, like how does it behave, how does it act, how does it move. Not yet film wise or animation wise, but just exploring a bit the poses. Just telling the model like, hey, give me this character, it's driving a skateboard, it's walking in the street, like how does that look like. Just explore a bit the width and the variety of that character. Zoom in on the face. You can literally ask the image editing model like, give me a close-up of the face. It's laughing, it's smiling, it's crying. Just get that variety. Once you have enough of these images, what you can do, like let's say 15 to 20, is what you can do is you can train a model, which is what it's called a LoRa, which is you give it 15 to 20 images, and then you will have a custom model trained on your image model that will allow you to, based on a text prompt saying, for example, Marcel is standing on the beach, it will know what Marcel is, how it looks like, because you fed it all those images, and it will give you consistent images of your character in any possible situation. So that's a LoRa. And then you can, of
Sorry
course,
to interrupt.
yep,
How do
go
you
ahead.
spell that so that people can check it out?
Lora is Lora, but usually what you're looking for is like character training or
Sure.
something along those lines.
Sure.
Again, FreePig, Kriya, they all have it in there. It's just training a model on your own images. Yep. And then once you have like a good quality, consistent imagery of your character, then you can start bringing it to life. The most important part about video AI is that you have a good starting frame. That's almost like 90% of the job is your starting frame needs to look good, and you need to have a good idea of what the character should do, and it should be quite simple. Like usually things break very fast if you say to the AI, Marcel is running to the store, picking up an apple, eating it, and going, that's too much. Then you need to cut that up into multiple frames and create multiple animations from that. But a very simple action, a very good first frame. You have models that have last frame too, so you can say what the first frame is and what the last frame is, and then you can animate between them. But for simplicity, use the first frame and then use a model like VO3 Fast or Dance Pro, which is really good for character animation, to just say, use this image and then describe very simply like the character is walking on the street, waving, for example. Hit generate, and you will get a really, really surprisingly good and realistic result. And then again, you build out a little bit of an animations database, and then you could start playing with more like a full story where you come up with an ID, a script. You can ask ChatGPT to write out the script, but never ask ChatGPT to come up with creative ideas. It's not good. And once you have the script, you can start like breaking it down into scenes, and the scenes you break them down into frames, and the frames you animate. You throw them together in an editing software like CapCut or Premiere or After Effects if you want to get fancy. And you add things like dialogue, music, sound effects, grading, all the traditional stuff to make it feel like a story that, you know, is worth telling, that is interesting, that is engaging. And that's it. The one thing like I hate and that a lot of clients ask me and does not exist, and what you will come up with is like, hey, can I just type an ID for a video somewhere, hit enter, and then let the AI do all the rest? No, it's hard work. It's as much hard work as before. The only thing that changes is that you're not shooting the footage with a camera, but you're like, you know, you're making the footage with AI through a lot of hacking. And I can tell you, like, I can still spend like half a day or a day on creating a video. It's a lot less than what I would originally like. It would be impossible. It would be 3 to 4 weeks with a 3D studio again to do this. So it's super exciting, but it's still a lot of work, a lot of fiddling, and I like this idea of somebody that worked in film that is now doing these really cool, like AI films. I actually don't remember the name, but I'll try and dig it up. He said like in traditional film, when a director is on scene, you have an actor, they say action. Usually it takes around 10 takes to get the right take. So 10 times you do it again. That's a lot in a real film. You have to redo the whole scene again and again 10 times. In AI, it's the same. And I even try to like, I literally do this. I usually hit like 3, 4 times generate for everything I do. I just hit 3, 4 times. I get the results. Then it's another round of like generating 3, 4 times. So usually I also end up at around 10 variations of an image or a video before I have something that I like. So that's important. Think about that iterative process. Put out a lot of different variations and then take out the best. Use your taste, your creative mind, your curation, and then put that something together into a story. And again, like what I think actually really works well is if you use little bits and pieces of you. Like if obviously for me, if it's a personal brand, I use my actual voice. Like this is me talking, and then this is Marcel talking. That's my Marcel voice. It's very dumb, but this
I
works.
think
I
it's
mean,
awesome. I
yeah,
love it.
voila. So yeah, that's it.
You know what I'm thinking when hearing all of this? Like, I want to make a cartoon, and like, and what I think's so exciting is I know, young me So something that I've always been concerned about with AI is that opportunities for young designers like me when I was like 20, when I was kind of learning and using things like MySpace to get some opportunities from bands. The stuff I was doing back then was terrible. And but these bands, these companies, they had no access to anything better. So that worked for them that they could do that. But now, unfortunately, while AI isn't great at logos, it does a good enough job that for those opportunities early on in my career that allow me to learn, experiment, get used to working with clients and all that sort of stuff. It's that I've been concerned that that opportunity has gone. So I've not been concerned about like us who have been doing this for 20 years or whatever, which makes both of us probably feel old. I feel we're safe because we're established. People can already find us online. We've already got a whole backlog of work that we've done stuff for. So for all those clients that don't want to use AI or any of these tools that wants to work with an expert, we are safe. It's just very hard to get to that level. That's always been my concern, that the entry point is unfortunately going to be eaten up. But think about this, right? I know young me would be watching this and I'd be like, I can make an animated film using this. So I used to love things like Wallace and Gromit, Aardman animations.
Oh
I
yeah, I love it
feel
too.
like I could design my own Wallace and Gromit kind of character and make a
Exactly.
whole little animated movie, edit it together. I'm still learning the tools. I'm just learning different tools, and I'm creating something that will get me noticed, that will
Hmm.
attract more work. And it's a job that didn't exist a year ago.
Exactly.
And I think you've proven it, that you have you've been in this fortunate position in your full-time job where you've had this opportunity to play, develop this process, but you've turned this into more than just that. Like you mentioned about this whole collection of different characters that you've done, and you shared a lot of that on your socials, and I want people to go and check that out. But like a young designer, this is stuff that a little me would have been doing. Something that didn't exist now, something that our generation, with the exception of a few, will probably um, be against. But those that are embracing it, like you, are finding these opportunities where you can integrate your skill sets and branding, your knowledge, or your background to art direct, manage, create these things, put it out there. I think it's very, very exciting. And I'm so glad that I, sort of pulled you in to talk about this. So I want to ask one last question to sort of close things off. So we've described about creating a character, creating all the angles of it, using these tools to kind of create stories and edit things together. And I think if you're a designer, you can go and check out these tools and start playing around with things. But let's get back to the use case of this. So
Hmm.
if you're a brand, how are you then going about integrating this? So you create this character, you've got all these images, assets, different pieces. What's being done to physically integrate that? How are people doing that? Like you mentioned at the start of this that the company that we work for now has like thousands or hundreds of assets every day. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was a high amount of content. Are they integrating the stuff that you're creating? How are they approaching it to make this character part of their brand?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's where like what's interesting. Definitely, there is some tooling. Like again, I use Scenario because it's really good for bigger brands, like with in-house teams. You can build on that. So definitely check out that platform. But there's a lot of other platforms as well. The main thing you have to build is that image model, which I talked about earlier. Once you have that, it's a matter of giving people a place where they can input text prompts and then they will get visuals out of it. We even had a
Okay.
Slack bot where people just added a Slack bot, like they add the Marmot generator and they got back the image. Now we created like a custom environment where people can go see their images. Like it's basically all built on top of this image model. You can vibe code something using an existing API, or you can use existing platforms and just have a team account and invite people on them. That's like the tech infrastructure around it. So depending on your scale, like keep it simple and just use an existing tool, train the image model there, and just use what is there. If you want to get a bit more fancy, like I've seen some really cool stuff like brands. I talk to a lot of brands and marketing teams, like they're building little custom apps. Like actually, I have this example for my own where it's like marcelmascot.com, where you can go and I basically vibe coded this little old school vintage operating system. It feels like a, I don't know, like a Windows, I don't know, 90 or something. And it's very cool because there I have all these types of mini apps. For example, one of the apps is Hug Your Mascot, where you can upload a picture and then what will come out is you with Marcel hugging. You can draw you can draw something and Marcel will be in that drawing. I have like 4 or 5 apps and I'm building a few new ones. And again, that is all based on just vibe coding and then using the API based on an image model. It sounds a bit technical, but again, I'm not an engineer. It's just like fiddling around a bit. But those are tools and those are ways you can build it. You can build it custom. You can do it with existing platforms. What's probably the most important part is training. And I've been training a lot of teams, doing workshops, making tutorials, and it's very important there that you have somebody. And this is an opportunity for people like offering services to clients as well, because you can be the one that helps the client understand how to work with AI. You can be the one that guides them, that keeps updating them, not just one time, because a lot of professionals I know are a bit afraid of like, yeah, Steph, but what if we, give our client access to these tools? Will they still need us? Yes, a lot of the times. And the main reason for that is actually because the hardest thing to train is like creativity and taste. Those are things that are almost impossible to put in a tutorial. And so a lot of the times, even if the tools are there, you still need to show them a lot of cases, and you will still need to make for them the best possible assets. But yeah, investing time in coming up with tutorials that give best in class examples for this specific brand, how to do X, how to do Y, how to create a social media visual, how to do whatever, is very important part of this, and will make, I think, the difference between just people playing around with it and letting it go and brands really embracing it. And then just to hit on the last point, because I do think it's important, I think we're also, and I talk about this in my newsletter, I think we're coming in a new type of age. It sounds a bit future forward, but anyway, where brands will have to let go a bit this idea of being very much in control of their assets. Look at Sora, the app that OpenAI just released, and probably they'll have to shut it down at some point. But I think it's a glimpse into the future where people start playing around with, like, SpongeBob being handcuffed and dragged into the police thing. People are giblifying their images. There's a lot of stuff that is happening with, like, strong IP copyrighted material that people are playing around with this. And a lot of brands have interesting, iconic things, products that people want to play around with. And so I think the goal in the like the next 5 years for brands that have strong visual identities will be to like invite their audience in to play with these codes, but make it on their terms. That's what I'm trying to do. Because I'm like, people might think, well, yeah, but that's for big brands. But I mean, I'm a very, very, very small little fish. And actually, I've had a lot of people like asking to play around with Marcel, generate images with him, do hugs with them. I send them little fridge magnets. There's a lot that people want to come in and play. We had the same with Alan, where we did like this postcard campaign, and over 27,000 people generated the postcard in just like a day or two. So yeah, I think open up the doors, have good tools, have good training, and have creative people on board. That's like a mix of things you need to really work on this stuff.
I feel so excited about the possibilities for like if you're a company, everything that you've described here, you can see that being integrated into content creation teams. So that's like new jobs. I think for designers like myself who are that work in branding, this is also a new opportunity to offer a service um that we possibly wouldn't offer previously. So I again, for the people that are maybe not like they don't like the idea of AI doing stuff, and I know a lot of people that like that. I really feel it worth embracing, considering what can be done and trying these things out, because the tools are only going to get better. Like these are like the tools that are there now. It's so new. Um, that there are obviously flaws that we're having to work with, but I believe this is the way that things are going to be done, primarily ongoing. And obviously we can do things the more conventional way if you want to improve things. But it gives access to us who wouldn't have done that previously. It gives access to companies that wouldn't have had a mascot. Like there's so many opportunities. I think we're in a very, very exciting time. Um we are at the point where it is the creative reset. Like everything is resetting, like how we need to approach things. And I think what you're doing, Steph, is one potential avenue that people can consider. So I really, really appreciate you being so open, transparent about everything, the tools that you're using, the approach that you're taking. And I know that if people want to learn more from you, you have your Let's Talk Branding newsletter.
Yep.
And you mentioned about like a subscription, like a paid subscription where you can get more detailed information. So I'm going to link to that in the show notes for this, or in the description of this video, and people can go and check that out. But I think we will
Amazing.
wrap up the interview now. Steph, thank you so much for coming on. I know we could have talked for a whole another 10 hours, but we'll save some content for another future episode. But it's been a long overdue conversation, and I'm so glad that we've done this, and I hope that people listening or watching have enjoyed this.
It was a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on, man.